Okay, good morning everyone. We'll be going over Learning Plan 5 today, which is essentially Chapter 4. We'll be going through pretty much step by step, a couple additional discussion things, but pretty much just following through. On your learning plan, there's an item listed for lab sims. I don't have that listed yet. I do have the list. I just have to type it in real quick during the first break, so don't look too far ahead for that. I have updated the rest of the learning plans. I apologize about that. This got behind on a couple of videos. As far as uploading them, I think everything's current out there as of last night. So you should be able to look back at learning plans, 2 through 4, and look at the videos if you need to or want to. By the way, most often I do get them out to YouTube before I actually get them on Angel. So if you go out to YouTube and look up, my name, you should be able to find all the different videos if you're truly interested in anything else that's covering. I'll try to get that more consistent. I'm getting a better schedule of things now, so I'm getting a hold of things a little better. Along with that, the sequence of classes is going to change just a little bit. I'm not going to have you pre-read chapters anymore. Since we'll be covering them pretty much word for word and step by step, there's not really a sense for you to do it again. Do it if you want to. I'm not going to stop you from doing it. I'm just not going to assign it to you and make you do it. Along with that line, I'm not going to make you do the review questions. It's going to be pretty much, you're going to come to class, we're going to do the review with the material all together and work together through things. And it'll be the basis of reviewing things. So if you want to explore and do more with, like today we're creating organizational units, go ahead and create more. Play with them, create additional users. We're starting to work on some security aspects. Do it. What happens if I do this? What happens if I do that? So kind of your exploration. As far as the class time, as far as what's required of the class, though, it's going to be pretty straightforward out of the book. The lab simulators, we will be getting to more lab sims now that we're getting into real content as far as creating users, groups, organizational units, that kind of stuff. There will be many more lab sims. Those are going to be on your own. I'll be giving you lab time to do those as well, so we're not be using the entire time just talking up here. So you can do lab sims in class, and that's a great time to ask questions as well. Some of them are actual simulations, and you will need to create an organizational unit. You need to create a user, stuff like that. Those are going to be your activities for the midterms. So there's not going to be multiple choice midterms, fill in the blank, short answer. It's going to be those exact simulations. As far as looking at your lab sims, when I assign lab sims to you, I'll be looking at just seeing that you've done the labs. So if I say, just throwing out there, lab 5, I have you do lab sim 5. I then go to lab sim, make sure you've done lab 5, watch the videos, do the online quizzes, do the scenarios, do the actual practice labs, and then that's where your gradebook items are going to be. So we mainly based on that. Showing that you do a good attempt on them, and showing that you passed, especially the lab experiences is where you get the points. If it's limited attempts or limited, working on things, we might just talk about it. But I want you to all succeed. I want you to go through this. I'm here to give you opportunities to learn. I can't make you learn or make you do different, do different things. It's what you decide to do with the things I give you. Any questions on anything so far in the class, what we're doing? Learning stuff? A little bit? As always, before we start, it's a very good idea to be creating a snapshot. So you want to open up your virtual machine first. File, open. I look at my data drive, virtual machines, Windows, Server 1 class, and I have multiple servers. I'll be concentrating using Windows Server 1, 2008-1. Once it opens, thinking, not responding. Go to VM, snapshot, take snapshot. We're going to chapter 4, so I'm going to create a chapter 4 snapshot. I can always come back to this then at any time. If I want to redo those lab activities. Just like Joseph was saying that he had some issues creating a user or logging in a user that he created. He just couldn't do it. Tried, retried, delete. I've done this as well. It's just like, oh, I forgot to do something, so I try to go back a couple steps, and then something's out of sequence. Revert back to your snapshot, pre-chapter 4, start at the beginning and go through those labs again. Yes? So I'm turning on my computer. And while this is happening, we can start talking about Chapter 4. Chapter 4 is Active Directory Design and Security Concepts. Just to forewarn you, don't get completely overwhelmed in this chapter. This would be an easy chapter to get overwhelmed in. Not with the concepts of organizational units. That's pretty easy. Creating users and groups, that's pretty easy. But once it starts getting to the security of allow and deny, and then special permissions and advanced, it gets very cloudy very quickly. Fortunately, those are more or less the exceptions. So they're showing you every extreme situation that you could possibly come up with and sort of throw it at you all at once. We're just going to go through it step by step, follow along. When we actually apply it later on in other, more realistic scenarios, it's a little bit more straightforward. That is showing you how you can have exceptions or why you would have exceptions. They gave the example of, you have a junior admin, we want them to do things, but we don't want to mess things up, so we're going to have a special exclusion for them. Well, okay, how often do you have that in a corporate environment? I'm not going to put my junior admin on any network to be able to do anything, let alone just not delete objects. They're going to have their own test environment to play with and do whatever. So again, these are sort of extreme situations and looking at all the details. There's lots of jumping around as well. We look at this, we look at this screen, look at this screen. Again, just go through it. It will make more sense as we continue through the book, and I keep applying the same things over and over. Don't think that you have to master this the first time through. I certainly did not. Even the security itself of all the different features and functions you have and where they inherit and how they inherit, as you apply it more often, it will get more second nature. So just reassuring you and not making you drop the class after week 5 because where is this going to go from here? It will get better. Working with, on page 112, it says a directory service should be thought of as a tool to help administrators manage network resources. Like any tool, the better designed it is, the more useful it is that it will be. In its default configuration, Active Directory is a useful directory service, but its real power is apparent when thought has been put into its design and configuration. We're going to see in a minute that you can configure this in all kinds of different ways, whether it's by region or department, a flat structure, a very deep structure. There's different ways of organizing and different thought processes behind that. Even that is a little bit hard to understand if we don't understand what it's affecting. So as we go through the book, you'll see why we have organization units, where they apply, what's going to be affected by working with organizational units, and that helps you with the design process. They sort of throw the design up front without really understanding the ramifications of it later on. They talk about working with organizational units to begin with. Before working with organizational units, you need to know that Active Directory is based on the standards. It talks about LDAP, and they sort of go through that whole structure of what LDAP is and where it comes from. But really, we are working with organizational units. On page 113, it just says they are containers that holding objects such as users and computer accounts, but they can also contain other organizational units. The ability to nest them gives them flexibility and hierarchy, so I can give something at a top level and it's going to flow down to lower levels and all the way down. So it's definitely used to our advantage if you plan it right. If you decide that you don't want things to flow down, well then maybe you have the wrong structure in place. Figure out something that will help you and assist you in accomplishing what you want to do. They talk about a very flat single-level OU structure on the left-hand side of 113. It says administration, marketing, R&D, and operations, just straight on down. think of this almost like a file system. How am I going to organize my files on my home computer? What things do I want to group together? In some cases, you don't have that many things. You just want to do a simple structure. As things get more complex, you might want to nest things like on the right-hand side of 113, where under marketing, you know what, marketing is getting kind of big. I really do want to split it up by special functions like sales and advertising. Maybe I want to split up research and development and do research and engineering in different sub-containers. You know, there'll still be some aspects I'm working with R&D as a whole. Other aspects I might want to work with research and then engineering separately, but they all flow together. On page 114, it's just listed. You can say it by department, or you can do it by location. So it's just another comparing and contrasting of how you can organize things. Most often, the way that we work with things is by department. At least that's the way that I've done things. That's the way I've seen things done, is by having organization units by department. Human resources, sales, production, IT, because a lot of times our rights are based on department. Sales should be able to do certain things. Production should be able to do different things or whatever. There's a little note above there. It says there's another approach. There are other approaches to OU hierarchy. For example, a current trend is designing OUs based on grouping users and resources according to their security levels. Windows does that already. If you look under your Windows 8 or Windows 7 or going way back, if you created a user, you can make them an administrator or a regular user or a super user. You know, you had all these different account types to see what they're going to do. We can do the same thing in Active Directory. We can say these are the super people, these are the standard people. You know, if you think of military, you have different classes. You know, secret, top secret. I don't even know what the classes are, but you can, you know, put everything together that's at a certain security level. I prefer departments. It helps me find people. Oh yeah, Jane, you work in HR. I can find you very quickly. Oh, those are the sales computers that I need to work with. It's going to be found under sales. So a lot of times it just makes sense to me. Creating a very simple organizational unit structure is activity 1. And to help me see this on the video when I'm trying to split things up, I actually have a Word document, WordPad document. It's going to say activity 1. Start with activity 1. We do want to log in. Control-Alt-Insert. Let me switch to full screen. A little bit less distracting. And log in as password, capital P01. Once you're in, it comes up to Server Manager automatically. That is something we use quite often. We're not going to use it right now, though. So I'm just going to close that. And I want to open up the Active Directory users and computers. So I click on Start, Administrative Tools, Active Directory, Users and Computers. And this is my directory structure that I have. These are the things that have been built in. We created a test organizational unit before, and now we're just going to expand by adding additional organizational units. We can do this multiple different ways. I want it to be right underneath my domain, and so I need to click on my domain, and then I can right-click on my domain and click on New Organizational Unit. That's a very common way. The book takes you through that pretty consistently of saying right-click, New, whatever object is going to be. The other thing that you can do is click on the organizational unit or domain that you want to be working with and use the icons across the top. These kind of look like folders, these organizational units, and that's what the icon is up here. It has the little burst in the upper left-hand corner, which means new. And if I click on this, this will also, if I hover over it, there we go, create a new organizational unit in the current container. So if you prefer to right-click or New Organizational Unit, that's great. If you prefer to click the button, either way is going to be fine. We're going to be continuing on. Let's see here. We want to create one called Administration. Administration. And the last time we created an organizational unit, it had us delete or uncheck the protect the container from accidental deletion. We're going to keep this on this time, and we're going to show you where that is so you can remove it if you need to later on. And then I click OK. Now, defaults, just be careful, this is a common mistake, is that as soon as you create an organizational unit, that becomes the new current container. And I've seen people build entire structures as sublayers underneath the original one, and that's not where you want it. You need to go back to the domain each time. And again, either click on the toolbar or click on right-click, New Organizational Unit. You want to do this for the other 4 directories, the other 4 organizational units. It's marketing, back to the top, research, back to the top. Oh, thank you. Research. So let me I didn't refresh. I missed the button. Right clicks are always hard. Rename. There we go. Research and development, and then operations. So it should look just like the bottom of page 115. I'll let you finish that up. The next section is dealing with OU delegation of control. As you've learned, one benefit of using OUs is that you can delegate administration of the OU and its contents to other users without giving them broader administrative capabilities, and that's through delegation of control. And we're going to be doing that. What things can you do to delegate on page 116? You can delegate the responsibility of creating, deleting, and managing users. Pretty simple. Reset users' passwords and force password change the next login. So you might want to give somebody or a group of people just the ability to change passwords. Read all the user's information. Now that's not their data, that's the user about their accounts. Create and delete, manage groups. Modify members of groups, manage group policy links, and then generate resultant set of policy and generate resultant set of policy, both logging and planning. We're going to be concentrating on just having delegation of the creating, deleting, and managing of users in this next activity. And that's going to be, bring that up, activity 4-2, page 116. We already logged in as admin, and we already have Active Directory users and computers up here. We want to be delegating responsibilities to somebody to work with the operations container or the operations organizational unit. When we do this, we want to first, no we don't. We want to create somebody in operations and then give them rights to marketing. That's the activity. So in operations, I want to create a new user. So right-click, New User, and I'm calling him Joe Tech. That'd be a funny name. Joe Tech 1, in fact. And his username is going to be JTech1. Password is going to be password again with a capital P, P-A-S-S-W-O-R-D 01, P-A-S-S-W-O-R-D 01. Where it says the user must change their password at the next login, we're going to uncheck that. That way we can keep password 1 for this user forever instead of having to change it and worry about what it is. And then we can click Next and then Finish. So the point of this activity is that you can create somebody in one container, but give them control over another container. And so that activity is going to be then going up to marketing, and I choose marketing. And I right-click on marketing, and the very first option up there is to delegate control. I do find this a little inconsistent with Windows Server is where you find the ability to do different things. Sometimes you have to go in under properties of the object and then under security or under just a bunch of tabs that you're working with. Other times it's the menuing system up on top, and other times it's your right-clicking. So again, it's as you start using these over and over, you start remembering where they are. Other than that, keep notes, and it's like, okay, I want to delegate control. Where do I find that? Well, it's pretty easy. It's just not consistent of where you're going to find these things. So delegate control. It brings up the delegation wizard, and I click next. Selected users and groups. Nobody's in here right now, and I want to add to that list. So I click the add button, and I can start looking for people. I usually just type a couple characters of the person I'm looking for, and then click on check names. And it's not finding anybody. Isn't it JR? Oh, no, not JR. We're doing test. No, Joe Tech. Tech. There we go. Come on. Why can't I find anybody? Ah. Well, this is horrible. J. There we go. Eventually it finds it. And I click OK. Once it's up in the list, that's all you need to do, unless you want to add additional people, and then click next again. This is where we get to delegate the most common commands, and those are the things we just talked about. And you can, and it's not just one or the other. You can select multiple things. I want to be able to create people, delete and manage users, and reset their user passwords. So you could check both of them, or check them all if you want to have them have a lot of ability to do things. We're only going to do create, delete, and manage users though. And so I click next, and I finish. So it's a pretty simple process. Who do you want to have authority, and what do you want them to do? Page 117, after you've delegated control to a user, there's no clear indication that this change has been made. So nothing like really pops up here saying, oh yeah, somebody else is managing marketing. It's just sort of there. You can't really see what's there. By default, the organization unit properties don't show that another user has been delegated. To verify who has been delegated control, you must view the OU's permissions as explained in the following section. That's where we're going to get next. So you'd have to look up each of these containers to see who can do what. Okay, Active Directory object permissions. This is where it gets a little cloudy. We have the discretionary access control list. Most often we call it an access control list. We're saying discretionary in that we get to choose. It's very defined. It's very discrete in what we put in there. But think of it as your whole access control list. Very generically, access control lists are who can do what, and that's it. We talk also about, the chapter refers to ACEs all the time, ACEs, which are access control entries. So when we talk about an access control list, who can do what, the access control entry would be the who. So, and the who we're going to see in just a minute can be a group, it can be a user, it can be kind of any object in Active Directory. Object owners, it's listed here because that is a special circumstance. If you create an object, you have all kinds of rights to it, even if you wouldn't normally. Because you're the creator, you made it, you can do anything. And then they talk about the auditing access through the system access control list, which we don't get into a whole lot right now. What kind of rights do we have? We have full control, which means you can do everything. We have read. You can view the objects and their attributes, and you also have the right, which is able to change those attributes. And then you have two additional rights, creating children objects or creating child objects or deleting child objects. Permissions and inheritance for Active Directory objects work almost identically to NTFS files and folder permissions, which just means that they flow down. And they work with the allow and deny. And if you're not familiar with that, it gets better. It does. Let's see, a couple of special examples. On page 118, when a user has been assigned permissions to an object through a combination of methods, through groups, organizational units, and through user-specific rights, and even user-specific rights at different levels. So I back up. So if I give you if I am part of a tech group, and if I'm part of a management group, and I'm given rights at different levels of the organization, you know, certain rights here and certain rights at the next level down, they sort of all get combined. They get added together. Typically, they get added together. So if I'm given specific rights as an administrator or an administrator group, I'll get these rights. If I'm part of a tech group, I'll get additional rights. And then additionally, I'll get ones because I've been assigned them, even at different levels. The next section talks about denying, but the effective rights are, what can I actually do in here? You know, you say I can do this, you say I can do that, I'm doing this, this, and this. What can I actually do right here? And we'll be taking a look at that extensively in the chapter multiple times, looking at what can you do in specific places. And there's a little tool built in that shows you exactly what you can do. Those are your effective rights. How they get added together, you should be able to do by the end of the class. Well, not today's class, the end of the semester. You should be able to look at a set of rights and situations, and you should be able to calculate all that. And then you confirm it, so like checking your answers in math, look on the effective rights page and say, oh yeah, it does match. This is why I have that. If something doesn't match, oh, where did this come from, or why don't I have that, or where did that right come from? You know, it's being able to figure out where they came from. So the deny right, though, makes things really interesting. The deny right it takes precedence over the allow right. So if somebody says that you can do this and somebody else says you can't do this, then you can't do it. Except in some situations, if somebody above you told you that you can't do this and somebody at this level says you can, then you can. Does that make sense? So if you inherit the deny right, inheriting is getting it from someplace else and then I get it. If I inherit a deny right, then explicit personal allow right takes precedence. Every other situation, they're all equal. Deny overrides allow. These again are exceptions. These are not typical implementations of an ongoing basis. But you need to understand that up front, and then we even go through several examples in the chapter of showing you how that's done and the resulting effective rights from that. Permission inheritance on page 118. Generally speaking, permission inheritance defines how permissions are transmitted from a parent object to a child object, and it can go through multiple layers. If you have multiple layers, it's going to go through them all. We can even say if it's going to be inherited or not, whether it's only going to apply to this object or this object and all its parents, if it's all its children. So that's all in there. Advanced features, option in Active Directory. We'll take a look at the advanced features. We actually look at seeing those. We don't end up working with them. I think the lost and found container is pretty cool. It contains objects created at the same time that their container is deleted, perhaps for another administrator. So there's a little lost and found container. The other ones are just very generic. Okay, viewing object permissions, which is activity 4-3. So bring that up. And in this activity, we're going to explore the advanced feature options, which we just talked about in Active Directory. The description, you have just delegated control of the marketing OU to your technician, and you're curious to see how the DACL has changed, or the access control list has changed. To view the settings, you need to enable the advanced features. So let's take a look at that. Okay. We're still in Active Directory users and computers, where we have everything here, and we want to go to the marketing organizational unit. Right-click on here and go to Properties. And if you look here right now, I only have General, Managed By, and Com Plus. Not a whole lot of useful stuff here. I'm not sure why this is off by default, but under View, there's this Advanced Features item on the View menu. And if I click on that, now we get more things here. And when you right-click on an object like Marketing and go to Properties, you have more tabs here. And this is really important, and this is used a lot. So you should probably get used to seeing or having the advanced view on. And again, I don't know why it's off by default. I guess keep it hidden, keep it secret. If I take a look at this, going back here, as soon as I clicked on View the Advanced, now you can see these additional folders. We talked about the lost and found, talked about the program data, the NTDS quotas. There's another system folder as well. Okay, moving to step 4. If I right-click on Marketing and go to Properties, where'd my properties go? Let's try it again. There we go. I have my General tab, Managed by Object. Under Object, the information display is useful in troubleshooting. In addition, this is what you have to uncheck in order to delete this container. So remember when we created the organizational unit, so let me just throw one underneath here, new organizational unit. This is on here by default, protect the contents from accidental deletion. Well, normally, without the advanced view, you won't be able to see that checkbox, and you'd never be able to delete that organizational unit. You just can't do it. You try to delete it and say, no, you can't do it. Yes, I do. No, you can't. And now you're going to do this. No, that one we didn't do. That one we took the lock off of. But marketing and operations and research and development, we left all the locks on. So like I said, this is where you'd have to do this. If you want to get rid of a container, go to Object tab and then Unprotected from accidental deletion. Don't do that though. Just leave it the way it is. On the Security tab, we'll be doing lots of stuff on the Security tab. And this is not under the General view. This is under the Advanced view only. We can scroll to the list of users, groups and users, so that you know what ACEs or which entries are in the access control list. And then next to them or underneath them is the list of rights that they have. So if I click on everyone, I can see what they can do. And they kind of have this grayed out checkbox, deny special permissions. So not a whole lot's right there. If I click on self, let's click on Joe Tech. And now I scroll down, and this one has allow special permissions. So nothing else is listed right here as far as what they can do. It's just allow special permissions. And that's where you get into the advanced button. What are those special permissions? And I click on advanced. And these are the advanced permissions. So if I double click the first Joe Tech 1, so I double click on this, these are the things that it says permission entries for marketing for Joe Tech 1. And if I look down here now and I scroll down, it says that I can create a user object and I can delete a user object. And that's because we delegated authority to Joe Tech to be able to create, delete, and manage users. And so now that you can see that, that's where it's showing up. If you notice also up here, it says this is going to apply to this object and all descendant objects. So under marketing, right now I just have marketing, but if I were to have additional organizational units, which I will, it's going to flow down to them as well, because I'm telling it to go to all the descendant objects as well. So no matter how deep it is, Joe's going to be able to create users and delete users and manage them. Okay, if I cancel here, there's another entry for Joe Tech, and I double click on this one. Note that all the boxes in the allow column of the permissions are selected. This is going to be just for the descendant user objects. And why would that be? If he ends up creating them, he ends up becoming the owner of them. So he's going to have everything after them. So he's allowed to do this. So these are for the descendant object rights. They're selected in the apply list, which means Joe-Tech has all permissions for all new, what says, and existing users. So for all descendants, I'm able to have full control, list the contents, read other properties. Oh, these are going to be the individual properties of those users. That's what it's going to be. So I can change the password. So this is the manage part of all those people. So I can create, delete, and then manage as well. And then anything I create, though, I become an owner of. So it's additional, though. That's not part of here. So is this showing this in here? We're not changing anything at this point. We will later on. So I'm just going to hit cancel, and then cancel, and then cancel. The next couple pages are just talking about effective permissions. As discussed, effective permissions for an object are a combination of the allowed and denied permissions. So, you know, you get this here, you get this there. We kind of add these together. Oops, somebody threw in a deny, so you take this away. What are your effective permissions? And the next couple pages, you know, rereading through that, if you haven't read through that, a couple times, you know, read through it. What is this saying? Oh, here's a scenario where they give you 3 scenarios, I think. This is a situation. These are the effective rights. This is a situation. These are the effective rights. Oh, let's change this one thing, and now these are your effective rights. We get to play with that in some of the lab activities, but reading through it and trying to get a grasp of it's a good idea. With that, what I'm going to do is give you a break. So take like 5-10 minute break. Come on back and just read through pages 120 through 122. Just read through that a couple times, because that's going to help us as we work with the next lab activities of actually applying it. Just having that little bit of background for there. So go ahead and take a break. Is just a comment on automatic updates. We did set it up to notify of updates, but it doesn't actually install them. But you keep getting that little yellow banner in the corner saying there's updates available or whatever. I just turn mine off on an early snapshot, because otherwise you're going to be doing updates throughout the semester. You can revert back to a snapshot, and it's going to pop up again saying, hey, there's more updates. And it's sort of in the way. So what I've done, let me log in. Like I said, on an early snapshot, I end up going under Control Panel, Windows Update, and change the settings. Never check for updates. It's not recommended, I realize that. But even downloading the updates and let me choose whether to install them or checking for updates, you keep getting that icon in the corner, the little pop-up saying, hey, there's updates available, and it's just kind of distracting. If you do, it's fine. I'm not saying you have to turn it off. Go ahead and do it if you want. Activate Windows. Let's just take a time to talk about updates. They mentioned in the previous chapters about updates, and it's a good idea to keep your things patched. You know, if I check for updates right now, you know, I just want to check for updates. It is typically good to keep up on updates. I would not recommend having on a server update automatically though, because a patch could come out and it could, you know, maybe a service patch update that's going to end up messing something up security-wise, and all of a sudden it's going to conflict with another application. What you want to do is you want to be in a testing environment. So you have a dedicated simulated situation or a server environment that you would in the production world. With your active applications, active infrastructure, you download the updates, you try them, make sure everything's working. If it's fine, then you manually go out and update your servers on your network, is the preferred way of doing it. The updating process itself is fine. It's just having it done automatically that it could install an update that is not good. It happens rarely, but it has happened in the past where it's happened where whole companies, have had automatic updates on. Overnight, the update, they come into work the next day, and no one can use their computer, and it needs to be manually fixed. And it could be something minor, but every machine would have to be touched to correct this issue. Another example, IE8, I think, or maybe it was IE9, was considered an automatic update. So all those computers that had automatic updates on ran over the weekend. On Monday morning, they had the new version of IE, and in some situations, it did not work with the corporate intranets or the corporate internal systems that required a web browser to access. That's your whole system, and that's just the user side. Imagine taking out your servers. That is not a good situation. So having things done automatically in the background is generally not a good idea at a large scale. Okay, now mom and pop shop, Windows Server, not sure how they do things or when they do things. They just have 10 users, the same 10 users. If somebody gets hired, they call you and you put it in or whatever like that. Probably want the automatic updates. You're not going to go there every other week and do updates for them, or they're not even going to look necessarily. Let it do the updates at 2 o'clock on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning. They're closed on the weekends anyway. It reboots if it has to, and you're fine. So it's just using your discretion of where you're going to apply it, where it's not. Oh yeah, if you're going to do an update, don't do it in the middle of the day. and that was what they had us do when they have changed the settings. What was it, like 3 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday? Was it every day? I forgot what we had it changed to. Every day at 3 a.m. So it's kind of a load time right there. But even at that point, it's going to let's download them so they're there available, so that when you say, oh yeah, I do want to apply them, that you're not spending the next 45 minutes waiting for it to download. It's all there. Now it might take the next 20 minutes to update, but you have everything available to you. So okay, did you get a chance to read through 120 through 122 a couple times? Look through it. Okay. Let's apply it in Activity 4.4. Activity 4.4 is working with permission inheritance. 4.5 is then determining effective permissions. And that's a little bit longer one. We get to play with things. In Activity 4.4, 19 important updates. Let's see what they are. Security update, Service Pack 1 for .NET. Security update, security update, security update. Not quite sure how you can have so many security updates in just a couple weeks. I thought I did the updates. These are old. Okay, let's close this. And we are going to, on page 123, Activity 4-4, create 2 organization units underneath the existing one and see how the inheritance works. So we're logging in. I'm an administrator. Open Active Directory users and computers. It's the same tool we've been using so far today. And I want to right-click on Marketing again. And this time I want to do a new organizational unit. And I'm going to be creating 2 of them, one called Sales. And I create another one. Make sure you click on Marketing again so that you don't put advertising underneath Sales by mistake. Advertising. So now I can see that I have, organizational units underneath an organizational unit. So if I go to the sub container or the sub OU on sales, I can right click on sales and I can go down to properties. And because I have the advanced view setting on, I get the additional tabs. So if you're ever looking, it's just like, oh, I can't find it, just remember back to look under view and then the advanced features selection here. This is, by the way, it's an on-off. So if I click it again, it turns it off. And if I go into marketing and sales, I don't have these anymore. So, okay, go to sales, right-click, properties, and then up to security. Scroll down, and we're looking for, let's see, enterprise admins. They're just having a scroll down to enterprise admins. Note that the checkboxes in the allow column of the permissions are disabled, which means that it does not denied, they're disabled. That means I can't select or deselect these. And that's because they've inherited. If I try to remove this, like I want to get rid of the enterprise admins from here, and I click remove, and it says you can't remove the enterprise admins because this object is inheriting permissions from its parent, which means that enterprise admins really weren't given rights in this folder, in this container, OU, that it inherited it from above. And so you can't delete something that doesn't exist. So this entry really doesn't exist at this level. It's just showing you the result as it comes down from above. Okay, so go ahead and click OK. And let's see here. If I go to JOTEC1, and if I try to click remove, I should get the same message, which I do, because it's also inherited. I didn't give JOTEC1 specific rights to the sales organizational unit. I gave it to the marketing organizational unit, and it's flowing down into here, and that's what you're actually seeing here. So I'm going to click under advanced under here. And it says click one of the JOTEC entries in the permissions entries. So I find JOTEC, I scroll down here. Here's JOTEC right there. Place your mouse pointer over, oh, okay, double click on it. Oh, wait a second here. Where's I going with this again? Place your mouse over the pointer, permissions entry. This at this point. It's just showing this is inherited from marketing. Yeah, we're going to get into the other stuff later. Right now it's saying it's inherited from marketing. That's the step I'm missing. And that's, so anytime you can't delete something, you have to figure out where it's coming from. Here's coming from marketing, which you already said. This is the part we want to do now. Right now it's saying include the inherited permissions from the object's parents. If I uncheck this, the Windows security message will show, note that disabling inheritance applies to all the entries in the permissions list. This does not pertain specifically to Joe. This pertains to this entire list. So anywhere you have inheritance, you're saying don't inherit from the parent anymore. Don't inherit from the parent anymore. Well, since you don't want to inherit from the parent anymore, what do you want to do with all this stuff in here, it's asking. So you can remove the permissions, and so it's as if that doesn't exist. So Joe was never in the list at all. And you sort of lock it from there. The other option, which is much more common, is to use copy, which says, you know what, I inherited certain rights at a certain level, and I want to break that. I don't inherit it anymore. I actually want to copy them as explicit rights from this level on down. So that's what copying does. So I just did that. I just copied it. If you noticed, all the things that were listed under here are not inherited anymore. That they were given, it's as if they were given right at this object. So I took that inheritance, I checked the checkbox, I said, cut this off, you're not inheriting it anymore. I have now actually explicitly put you in this container. And then keeping track of that is a nightmare. What's above, what's below, what's inherited, what's not inherited. It looks like it's inherited on down, but it's actually two different entries at this point. Okay. And I click OK, and it says, warning, changes you're about to make will result in 12 permissions being added to the access control list, which are the ones that had formerly been inherited. I'm actually going to add them to the actual access control list. And I say, yes, I do want that to happen. Now if I go to the sales property, so I'm right here, Joe Tech, if I click remove, it let me remove it because I'm not inheriting those rights anymore from anywhere. I was given those rights at this level. So if you notice, I can delete Joe Tech now, and this lets me do it because those rights aren't inherited. This only happens to this half of the branch. If I go ahead and click OK, this was sales. Obviously, I still was given Joe Tech permissions at the marketing level. Those still flow down into advertising. It's just the ones that went down into sales have been broken and now been deleted. So that inheritance was broken and then Joe was deleted. That does not affect advertising. I can see that if I right-click on the advertising and go to Properties, and then click on Security, and then I find Joe Tech. I can see that I still have the same special permissions. I click Advanced and find Joe. I can create and delete, and I'm still inheriting from the marketing organizational unit. If I try to remove Joe from up on top, I can't because it says that I'm inheriting these rights. I'm not actually given these rights at this level. Okay. Okay, the question is, why would you do this? Why would you take something from operations, make them essentially a user manager of marketing, but then only give them half of them of advertising, but not sales? Okay, that's what I'm talking about. These are kind of exceptions. I'm thinking of a good reason, and it's not. Okay, Joe Tech, he has rights to here. If I try to remove him, I won't be able to do it because I'm still getting inherited rights from above, I think was what I was trying to show. And we'll leave Active Directory. The next activity, activity 4-5, is dealing with determining effective permissions. Now that we have played with different things and given different rights at different levels, we're going to play with it a little bit more. This is where our junior admin comes in. Oh, actually going back to Jesse's question, that's where we were. Why would we do such a thing? It would be, it might come down to like the research and development team. You know, there's research and development, there's a lot of research, you know, which is just, you know, just gathering information or grant writing or, you know, that whatever. But possibly there might be some like secret research, you know, like Area 51 or, you know, that everybody should get cut off from, that you don't want it to flow down. The comment was, it's way too difficult to keep track of this, and there's a security person or security team. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. We even do, like, we're going to go to, from our networking classes, we're going on a tour to Acuity, and we get to talk. They have a security team. Kohler has a security team to be able to manage those types of things. to keep track of what's later on. It's even further when we talk about group policies of what you can do in your computer and whatever. That's all part of the security. What is going to make this very secure? But the stuff that we're looking at right now falls right into it. Who can do what and where, and keeping track of it. Actually, the documentation is huge, and all the implications of that. What are you can't go into every place and every user and check effective rights, so you better make sure you have everything structured just right, so that when you put something in a group, you put something in a container, you know what's going to happen, and it's going to be the right security, right levels. And it's going to change a little bit at a time, which is the scary part, because a little tiny change over here can have a ripple effect over here. And that's why change control in larger organizations, it seems like a nightmare. You know, you say, oh, all I want is this. It seems simple to you. Yeah, it seems simple to you. Well, you're one of 100 pieces that have to all fit together. And if you decide to make this one little change, they're on the line for that one little change not having an undesired consequence over here. So, you know, what's this going to affect? What is the inheritance? What is the association? What is the trust? You know, how is this all going to work all down? And they have to look at every single scenario, and then they say, yes, you can do that. So it's not a bunch of people just trying to make your life miserable. Well, not typically, but it is truly a legitimate reason to make sure that it's going to stay secure and stay running. The activity we just did right now really has no ultimate difference other than deleting Joe. When I broke the inheritance and I copied the rights, there was no difference at all. There was no change for anybody at that point. Everybody, the entire organization, had the exact same rights as they did moments ago. It's just they got them differently. And now you have to keep track of that, because now Joe is getting these rights inherited down to that level, and he's getting a new set of rights from here. I changed rights up on top, assuming it's going to flow down. It doesn't. It stopped, and I have a new set coming down here. So you can keep it. That was that one little tiny simple example, and you can see how that could be massive implications. Okay, activity 4-5, a little bit more in depth, practicing with effective rights. It's a couple of pages here. This is a hard one to follow, so I better really keep track here. Okay, we're going to create another organizational unit under our domain, so way up on top of our w2k8ad10.com domain. So I'm going to do a new organizational unit, and I'm going to call it TestOU1, and I'll keep it protected. Under TestOU1, I'm going to be creating junior admin. And up on top, you have the little people thing as well. So we click on the person. So his first name. Yep, you're right. Let me go back. Let me choose the right organizational unit. Operations, and then choose junior admin. Thank you. New user. Here we go. Okay. Junior is the person. Admin. And it's JR admin. Yep. JR admin. And the password is going to be password 01. And I'm going to check where it says password never expires. When I do that, you can't force them to change the password the next login and have it never expire. And so it unchecks the first checkbox. So password never expires, and I click next, and then finish. So there's my junior admin. Okay, step 4, I'm going to go to the TestOU1 and then click delegate the control, and I'm going to delegate the control to junior admin. So I don't create him under TestOU, I create him under operations, but then delegate control of test OU1 to him. So I delegate control. It brings up the little wizard. I click next. And I want to add. And this is junior. So check names that start with junior. And there's my junior admin. And then I click OK. And next. In this case, I'm not going to do the generic create, delete, manage users. I'm going to create a custom task for junior to do. And I click next. And up on top it says this folder, existing objects in this folder, and creation of new objects in this folder. So it's going to control all that, and then I click next. Now, of those things in this folder and new objects in this folder, what you want them to do, you want him to have full permissions. So full permissions. And then I click next. And finish. Okay, to verify this, I can right-click on the test OU, and I go down to Properties, and I click on Security. And if I take a look at Junior Admin, I should see that he has full control to, yes, allow full control. And by the way, full control is all these other rights. Read, write, create all child objects, delete all child objects. It's everything else underneath it. So full control is, in fact, everything. If I click the Advanced button, now we're going to get into seeing with the effective permissions. Under the Advanced tab, so it's a little buried. So when you want to be checking effective permissions, you'd have to go to the Security tab, then Advanced, and then find the effective permissions. And you're going to find out the effective permissions for the test OU1 container for a specific person. Well, which person or group do you want? You have to click the Select button. It's the same Select User Computer Group window that we've had, and we will look up Junior Admin. So there's Junior, and I click OK, and then you can see what rights he has. And you can see that you don't have them all. You don't have full control, and you can't delete a subtree. And it's just like, well, didn't I give him full access to everything? In step 11 on page 125, the effective permissions for junior admin are less than full control because the everyone group has a deny delete permission for this OU. The deny delete permission is added to every new OU by default and can be removed by clearing the protect object from accidental deletion checkbox in the object tab. So again, going back to the object tab, because this is checked, it's saying that you can't delete it. And because you can't delete it means you don't have the right to delete it. And that's why when you look over here under the effective rights of junior, it says that you can't delete this object or the subtree. It's because of that checkbox. And because these two are not enabled, then obviously the full control is not enabled because that is, in fact, everything. Get that? Let's take a look at the everyone group. It doesn't have this in the book. But here's everyone. Here's a deny, special permissions, and everyone, there's a deny. There's a deny delete. So it's specifically given deny delete at this level, which means that even if I'm given it, I don't have it because I'm specifically given the deny to the delete feature. And that's where all the jumping around begins. Okay, moving on to practice with some more of these. I'm going to click kind of out of all this stuff. And on step 12, it's going to have me log off and then log back in as junior admin. So I'm going to log off. Control-Alt-Insert, and I'm going to switch users. Click on Other User, log in as JR Admin, and then my password is capital PASSWORD01, and then I can log in. Just waiting for this to come up. And I'm logged in. Yes, if you're getting the error that's saying that you can't log in, that the policy is not allowing you to log in, that was going back to the group policy activity that we had to do. This is a server that we're logging into. It looks like a workstation, but it's a server. And being a server, it had certain group policy, computer group policy settings in there saying that only somebody part of the administrators group can log on, locally log into this computer. Obviously, you know, if they're on the network on their computers, they can log into Active Directory, but walking up to this physical box and logging onto this machine is only allowed by administrators. So yes, if you have that error, go back through Chapter 3, and it tells you what group policy object to change to, you know, allow logins for normal users. Okay, so I'm logged in as junior admin right now, and if I go to the same place, administrative tools, which am I going to? Okay, junior users and computers. Yep. It asked me, well, I need to run this as an administrator, or you know, as making sure, and I just have to type in my password because I'm given rights to certain areas and lets me in. This is a different user. I'm logged in as JR admin right now, so all the settings that I had for my views and everything. So if I click under here, and now I right-click on Test OU and go to Properties, I don't have these objects up here anymore. It's because the view, advanced view got reset. So I need to click up here under View. So I said whenever that's missing, go back and double check that your View Advanced Features option is in fact selected. And then that does give you your advanced view, gives you other folders up front off the root, and it also gives you, like under Marketing, Properties, it gives you all the tabs across the top. So whenever you're missing that, and again, I don't know why it's off by default. It's what we use all the time, so just get in the habit of always turning it on. Okay, we were on step 12, we logged in. Step 13. Underneath Test OU1, so underneath Test OU1, I'm going to create another Test OU, a level deeper, called Test OU1 Level 2. And then underneath that, which is already my current directory, is Test OU1 Level 3. And so it looks like on page 125. Step 14, they actually have you do a couple of things in here. They're having you create another user called JR Test 1 and a JR Group 1, both in Test OU1. And they're not taking you through step by step. Test OU1, new user, and it's called JR Test 1, so JR be his first name, I guess, and Test 1 will be a last name. And JR Test 1 will be his login name. And the password will keep consistent of password with capital P, 01, and I'm going to make it so the password never expires. And click Next and Finish. In addition to here, in the same organizational unit, I'm going to create a group. So I'm going to create the group up on top, and I'm going to call it JR Group 1. It is a global and security. This is the most common type of group, and it is the default settings on there. A default global and security type group. And I click OK. To put the user in the group, I have two ways of doing it. I can go to the group and add JRTest1 as a member, or I can go to the user and go to member of and have myself join that group. So either way, you're just making that connection. JRTest needs to become a member of that group. So I'm going to do it this way. JR Group 1, members of this group. I want to add a member, and I'm looking up JR, and now I should have a couple JRs, and I want to make sure that I choose JRTest1. Click OK, and click OK. And that is step 14. Step 15 has you go up to View, and then the Advanced Features, which we did already, just showing you that it wasn't there before. I can right-click now on the Level 2 organizational unit, L2, and click on Properties. And if I click on Security, I can go down to the Advanced for Special Permissions. And I wait. Another tab that's in here, so far we've looked at the Permissions tab, we've looked at the Effective Permissions tab, and now this is the Owner tab. The Owner tab is telling us that JR Admin is the owner of this. I was not logged in as administrator when I created this organizational unit. I was logged in as Junior Admin when I created this organizational unit, and therefore Junior Admin is the owner of this. And I'm going to click OK. Up on top, I want to add JR Group 1 to this permission list. So I click on Add. I guess I'm just doing JR again. And I want to do this JR Group 1. And I click OK. And if you notice, just by default, so me just saying add a user or a group, I'm given allowed read writes automatically. So it's just saying that, you want access, I'm going to let you read the stuff. You can't change anything. You can't delete anything. You can't write any information to any objects. It's just you're allowed to see the information. And that's by default. Okay, if I click on this group, though, JR Group 1, I can now change this list. This is step 18. And I'm going to click on the write. So I'm going to allow writing. And I'm going to allow create all child objects. And I'm going to get rid of the read write. So I'm able to write and then create all objects. And then I click apply. So now after doing that, let me take a look at the effective permissions of JRTest again and see what changed. So if I click on Advanced and then Effective Permissions, I click on the side for Select, and then I find JRTest. And JRTest is over here. JRTest is part of JR Group, and so I should be able to see, let's see. Note that JRTest, this is step 19, notice that JRTest1 gets to write and create permissions. So I can write and I can create down here. As a member of the special group authenticated users, I also get the read permission. So even though the group did not get the read permission, because you're part of another group called authenticated users, they get the read permission. So that's where effective rights are coming in. He's part of two different groups. I'm able to, effectively get the ability to read all the properties and I'll write all the properties and also create the children objects. Okay, I believe, let's see, where did I leave off? Okay, actually I'm on step 20. Click the add button again, and this time I'm going to be adding JR test specifically. So I click add, I look up JR, and I have JR test 1. And for JR test 1, I have to click OK. Under the right column, now by default you get to read, you're allowed to read. Under write, I'm going to explicitly deny the write ability for this user. So even though I was given the write ability at some level, I'm now explicitly saying you cannot do this. Click clear the read. So I'm going to clear the read completely, and then click apply. So that's what I'm doing. On page 126, step 22, click the advanced button on the bottom again, and now let's see the effective permissions. So I click the effective permissions tab up on top, and these are the effective permissions for the test OU1 L2 container, and see what JR test can do in here. And now you can see that I can still read, even though I took off read, I'm still part of the group that gives read. So that's, you can see, part of the effective. And even though I'm part of a group that says, yes, you can write, I explicitly said that you can't write, and so now I can't write. The deny took the precedence. The explicit does not overwrite the inherited. The deny overwrites the allow, except if the allow is local or at this level and the deny is inherited. Then the allow takes precedence over deny. Other than that, the deny takes precedence over the allow. If there's any matches, so if they're both inherited, the deny takes over. If they're both explicitly at that level, then the deny takes precedence. After that, everything else is additive. It's only those special cases that you are going in and saying, I'm going to deny this right at this level on down. Pretty much every place else, you're going to be putting for that one feature, yes. The deny will overwrite that. Other than that, it's all additive. I'm saying that I'm going to allow you to read, and then another place is going to say I'm going to allow you to write, and another one's going to say I'm going to allow you to create children. I'm going to allow you to do this, and that's normally what's going to happen. So because I'm part of the tech group, I'm allowed to do this. Because I'm part of administration, all of these other allows, and because I'm both, I get to do all of this stuff. And that's a much more typical situation. But because this is so complicated and so, challenging, they're showing you kind of all the exceptions. Why would you, get rid of the right for that specific case? I don't know. I can't think of a real good scenario to even come up with that. But it's saying that you can. If I explicitly deny it, then it takes it away. Okay, that is step 22. 23, let's move on down to the L3 level. So I click OK. And then I click OK. And I move on to L3. Well, what's going to happen? If I go to Properties and Security, if I look down, wouldn't all that stuff flow down? Where's JR Test 1 and JR Group? Where are they? They're not there. That's because by default, when you apply an access control list entry, it's going to only apply for that specific object. So it doesn't inherit by default. So when you create these objects, they don't automatically flow down all the time. So let's cancel this and go back to L2. Go to L2 and then Properties. Go up to the Security tab. If I go back underneath Advanced, and I click on JR Group, because that's the one I want to look at here, JR Group 1, right here. I double click on it. Where's this going to apply to? This is only applying to this object, the L2 object. That is the default. If you want to apply to something else, you do the drop down. Now this is absolutely crazy. That's just a silly list of having something that long. We normally use the top two. Well, actually top three. This object only, this object and all descendants, or just all the descendants. Well, the most common is going to be this object and all the descendants. So I want to click there, and then I click OK. And I want to, I guess I don't do it for test, just the group. So now I go back to L3. And now if I look at security and then look at the advanced, now I should be able to see JR Group in here, and it's inherited from the L2 layer. And by not having that, I wasn't inherited. What applies is anything that you gave JR Group 1 in the L2 container will now also flow down into here. No, it did not flow down before. It did not flow down before, because just like right now, I don't see JR Test in here, and JR Test isn't in there, because if I look at the L2 layer, and I go to Properties, Security, Advanced, and I look at JR Test, I thought I put JR Test in here, didn't I? JR Group, oh here, way up on top, I missed it. If I double click on it, again, it's only for this object. So it does not flow down. So if I give you rights, it's only for the L2 organizational unit. It will not flow down unless you come back in here and say, apply to this and all the descendants. Just another caveat, really mess with your mind. Note that JR Test permissions are the same. Oh, we're looking for, I'm sorry, the effective permissions now under L3. If I look under L3, the effective permissions, security, advanced, effective permissions, and then I look up JR Test now. Now I have the right, because I had the deny right only apply to L2. So I had the deny right only apply to L2. It did not flow down. So now I can write. So this is a weird situation. Again, here JR Test can write, or write to objects in OU1 and can write to objects in L3 but can't in L2. I don't know. I can't think of a situation. Can in sales but not in Eastern sales, but can in Toronto Eastern sales. It's just a scenario to really stretch your mind and have you grasp this concept of where it flows and where it doesn't flow. Okay, so that's step 26. 27. I'm still in L3, and I want to click on JR Test. Oh no, what am I doing here? Okay, so now I'm going to be adding, I don't have JR Test in here. So let me put JR Test in here. Add JR Test. I want to click right in the Allow column, right for Allow. Check. Let me check my step 25 here. On L2, I go to Properties, Security, Advanced, JR test. No, I didn't change this. That's what I missed. Okay. JR test, this object and all descendant objects. That's what I want. So this is L2. It was locked in at L2, and I do want it to float on to L3. That's a step I missed. I thought I did. Okay, now I go to L3, go to Properties, Security, and now I see JR test on here. That's what I want to have. So it was supposed to be there on step 26. Or 27, it says click on the name. Click on write. So I inherit a deny, but I'm going to say and allow at this point. So even though it's inherited, I'm still able to sort of add a separate entry here. Let's click apply. And now let's check the effective permissions. It certainly should. And this is where, and I have the right. And I have the right, because that allow will overwrite an inherited deny. But any other way, the deny is going to take over. Got it? Can you remember this a week from now? This is where the design of your directory structure or your organizational unit structure comes so important. Try to avoid this. Why would you want to put yourself through this, unnecessarily? There's always exceptions, Yes, I need to figure this out for this one container. But for the most part, if you have a good structure design, it's going to flow down exactly the way you want it to happen. Okay. Whew. That was a tough one. But we made it through. What's nice about your snapshots is revert back to pre-snapshot 4 and do it again. And do it again. And do it again. And just, just keep practicing with it. So just to technically finish this up, let me close this. Step 29 says close all the windows and log off. So I'm going to log off. They're going to have us log back as the administrator for the next activities. I'm working with forests, trees, and domains. There's just a couple things I want to point out in here. Other than that, we'll be, sort of following along in the book as far as just doing the activities. I don't want to get real deep in here because I think that's pretty overwhelming already. For Active Directory terminology, we talk about directory partitions. It's a database. Active Directory is a database. All that stuff we're working with are just database entries. And being a database, we can break it apart. And there'll be reasons for breaking it apart. One is ease of administration, redundancy, closeness to users as they log in, all those kinds of features. Let's see, what else do I want to say on there? They talk about other terms in here as well, about operations masters roles. A number of operations in the forest require having a single domain controller called an operation master. So, there's a lot of things I can do and manage, but ultimately there's some point where somebody has to be in control. And so that's where the operations master comes in. So we can have a very distributed system and have lots of different partitions all over the place, but I need to reconcile all this and manage this, and that's where the operations manager's role is. We're going to look at this a lot, and it's going to sort of show where things are. It's sort of a quick tour of all of this in the next couple of activities, and they're going to look like they do the same thing. It's actually saying where's the operations manager's or master role for this particular type of object. We only have one server to work with, so guess where everything is? It's on the one server. We have no other options to even choose. So it's a little kind of premature even talking about it, but they want to introduce you to it. We don't do a lot with this stuff. We don't change this stuff typically. Normally how the system is set up, it sort of manages by itself. Viewing the operations roles is Activity 4-6. Discover where operations master roles are configured, and then we'll actually just take a look at it. Okay, so page 128, we want to log in, and we're going to open up Active Directory users and computers. So log in as administrator. So I want to switch user, click Other User, and then go to Administrator. And when I come in, I can go to Start, Administrative Tools, Active Directory Users and Computers. Come on. Let's try it again. There we go. Way up on top, again, not a very intuitive place, not something that normally people would think of looking at, but way up on top where it says Active Directory Users and Computers for this server on this domain, I can right-click on here, and I look at All Tasks, and this is where I can look at my operations masters. I keep masters. They act like a manager, but they're called operations masters. I click on here, and this is in fact where it's listed. Server 10 on that domain. That's our only server, so that's all we can really do with it. We can change it if we had something else to transfer to. And we have nothing else. So there's not a whole lot we can do. Let me go back into that. All tasks, operations masters. That's the RID tab. We also have the PDC, which is the primary domain controller. And again, it's listing this as the server. And if we want to change it, we could change it. And then finally, infrastructure is the same thing. The infrastructure master ensures consistency. So those are three different masters. One is for the domain allocation of the RID pools for other masters, the primary domain controller, and then also for the infrastructure. Only one server for any of these can be the master. That's the whole idea. You can't have two masters. Closing out of that, I can right-click on here again, and I'm going to click on Change the Domain Controller. And down the bottom, I have a couple options. You click on Change Domain Controller. If your domain had more than one DC, which is a domain controller, and then if your domain has more than one DC, you can connect to any of them here and then change the operations master role to the chosen DC. So I could, just put all my domain controllers in here and then, again, change my master over to it. And so that's where you can change it. Again, just not a real obvious place to do that. So keep that tucked in the back of your mind. Closing this, I want to go back to Domains and Trusts now under Administrative Tools. Start, Administrative Tools, Domains and Trusts, Active Directory Domains and Trusts. Here's just sort of another view of other masters. I still have this list up on top, the Active Directory Domains and Trusts. I right-click on it, and here I can see Operations Master. So this is the Operations Master for this domain, and I can change it if I had something else to change to. And I'll go ahead and click Close. Now for extra fun, to view the Schema Master, we actually need to create our own MMC. So this has been kind of fun. Gets you out in the command prompt a little bit. So I can type CMD, type in CMD to bring up my command prompt up here. I need to right-click on it, though. I need to run as administrator. And the command is reg svr, so reg server 32 and schmmt.dll. For the schema management DLL. And if I typed it correct, it should say it succeeded, which is good. Now if I go down here and I want to run MMC, which is the management console. I can add snap-ins into here as well. File, add, remove snap-in. And because I did that schema management, I can add the Active Directory schema now. I click Add, and I click OK. And here's my Active Directory schema. Now that's here, right-click. Nope, that's not it. Open this up. This is where it gets tricky. I had problems with this before. Come ahead to open it, click on it first, and then right-click on it. And now I have an operations master listed here as well. Yeah, clicking around here is a little tricky. Did you get the Active Directory schema into the MMC? Nope, didn't do that yet. Okay, let's work on that first. Okay, just going across those steps again. I'm going to close this. If you right-click on here and Operations Masters is grayed out, just click back on. You actually have to click on Active Directory schema and then right-click for Operations Master, and then it shows it to you. Note that only one domain controller in the entire forest performs the schema master role. Click Close, and then we can close this completely. Do you want to save your settings, create this new schema onto there? No, we don't need to do that. We also talk about replication. Replication is taking the whole database instead of parts of it, and now we spread it apart. And duplicate it. We have replication. Some purposes for that, again, is for redundancy, making it closer to the user. It makes it faster for accessing resources as well. And then the final activity is dealing with trust relationships. No, it's not the final one. There's a couple more after that, sorry. The final main topic is dealing with trust relationships. That is how the different domains are able to talk to each other and trust each other's information, more specifically within a tree, within a forest. Within a forest, we have two or more domains potentially, and how that all goes through. Please read through that. I'm not going to talk through that. Please read through that. That'll be on pages 130. Well, pretty much to the end. Please read and reread those sections. So let's just going through the activities though, without necessarily talking a lot about those roles. It needs a global catalog server. The first domain controller installed in the forest is designated as a global catalog server, but you can use Active Directory sites and services to configure additional domain controllers. Why do we have those? It's sort of like the way of looking things up. What can I see? What objects exist as a global catalog? To do that, let's do activity 4-7. Use Active Directory sites and services to see how to configure a global catalog server. The description: you've installed a domain controller at a branch office. You've heard about the importance of having a global catalog server at all locations. A junior administrator is currently at the branch office, and you want to be able to instruct her on how to configure the domain controller to have this global catalog on it. So we start off by clicking Start Administrative Tools, and we end up going to Active Directory Sites and Services. Let me close these windows. Administrative Tools, Sites and Services. Click to expand the Sites node if necessary. And then we have, I double-clicked on there, I have the first site name. Double-click on that, look under servers, and there's my server. This is my first server on that site, which is server 10. Let's see. If I click on server 10 on the left-hand side, I'm on step number 4 now on page 132. I can right-click on the NTDS settings, and I can go down to properties. If I click on the General tab, it's selected the domain controller is a global catalog server already. It's the only global catalog server in the forest. Clear the checkbox generates a warning message stating that the users can't log on if there's no global catalog server at that site. So right now this is the only one, so if I cleared it, it's going to say there's nothing else detected in the entire forest. No one's logging in because no one can see what objects exist. So I do not want to do that, and I'm going to cancel out of here. If I right-click on server 10, I go into properties, and I look at the General tab. Note that the global catalog is specified in the domain controller type. So what kind of domain controller is this right now? This is a global catalog type, and that is what we want. Again, as we have more servers, or potentially if you had more servers, we're only going to add one more to our forest at some point. It's only so big. We can't see the whole scale of, where's the global catalog if I had multiple sites and so on. Just showing you where they are. Okay, go ahead and cancel that. The next couple of pages deal again with the forest root domain, where all of my domains actually connect under one forest. And I guess just reading through that, pages 132 through 137, all this stuff is still dealing with how they're all interrelated and working with trusts. Yeah, I'm not going to talk much about these. Please just read through them and understand those trusts. They show good pictures, and I think the descriptions are pretty good. We're not dealing a lot with them throughout the semester, so it's not going to be terribly important. Where we wouldn't do the trust, though, if we're going to do it, let's do that in Activity 4.8. Perform the beginning steps of creating a forest trust relationship with a partner. We actually end up doing this later on in Chapter 10, where we're creating a trust between multiple servers. Right now, we're just going to go through the steps as if we would do that. So let's take a look at that. We want to close this, and we'll go to Administrative Tools and Active Directory Sites. No, Domains and Trusts. Domains and Trusts. Here's our domain node. I can right-click on here, and I go to Properties. The properties of this domain under Domains and Trusts, and then I have the Trust tab up on top. If I want to create a new trust, this is where it would be, and then it sort of walks us through. And I have nothing to create a trust with, so I can't really do anything, so I'm just going to cancel here. But that would be the steps. Where do I want to connect to, what kind of trust it's going to be, and it establishes that connection. So what you say, I trust. So if you have people over there given certain permissions, I will do the same thing over here. It's like a reciprocity thing between states or countries. The last really small section, it's not very big at all, is just dealing with sites, understanding sites as discussed in Chapter 2. This is page 139. A site is one of Active Directory's physical components along with a domain controller. An Active Directory site represents a physical location like a branch office and so forth. This activity is going to be working with sort of IP addresses with that site. Why do we have it? It's for the authentication efficiency, replication efficiency, and then even application efficiency. Subnets on page 141 are, as discussed, each site is associated with one or more IP subnets. In short, an IP subnet is a range of IP addresses that a group of computers share, again, at that location. And so when we're working with a site, we want to give it an address range so when it works later on, especially with DHCP or DNS, that we can manage all that. So sites are going to be important in that aspect. So let's finish this up with activity 4-9. Activity 4-9, creating a subnet in Active Directory sites and associate the subnet with the site. Step number 1, log on as administrator, which I already am, and go to Start, Administrative Tools, and Active Directory Sites and Services. It says double-click to expand the sites, and then if necessary, let's see, I want to open up sites. There we go. Right-click on subnets, and right now I have no subnets. If I right-click on subnets, I can go to New Subnet. And now it's going to ask you for the prefix. Now it gives you the examples of what it should look like. In the book, if we're following the book rules, it's 192.168.100.0/24. We have our own. So it's going to be 192.168.118.0, but it is still default class C, so we will use all 24 bits. It's the same as doing 255, 255, 255.0. And that is what our virtual machine is set up as. So 192.168.118.0/24. Oh, select the site. Sorry, I missed the bottom step. Select the site object for this prefix. When you have multiple sites, you could list them by branch office 1, branch office 2, main office, whatever. Well, which one does this apply to? You have to click on the list and then click OK. And so now I can see this is my subnet. I can go back to properties and I can find out what site it belongs to. If I want to change it later on, I could do the drop down and change it to a different site. If I go down to the first site, in the select object for this prefix, yeah, so actually I did those already, 5 and 6. So like I said, you can go back and change it to something else if you want to or need to. So that is subnets. Site links, again, dealing with sites, is needed to connect 2 or more sites for replication purposes. Default site link is a default IP site link is created automatically, and so it goes through there. We're not playing with that because we don't have multiple sites or even a way to simulate that. Lots of information in this chapter. I would certainly be concentrating on the organizational unit aspects and some of the basic security things. They're throwing in a lot of additional material in here. Read through it, try to understand it, but don't get overly overwhelmed on it. Questions or comments on this material? Your homework that you do have is to read those couple sections again to get a good understanding of it, and then also to do the lab sims, and it's 1.1, which is dealing with organizational units. You'll be creating, managing, and then delegating authority, kind of stuff that we've been doing in class today. If that's it, the rest of the day is yours.